Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Well, thank you so much once again for joining us for another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. We got a fun one. We got a good one today.
Yeah.
It's all about music.
Yep.
All about music.
It's one of my favorite topics, even though I'm not musical in any way whatsoever. You can ask Pastor Anna, who had the privilege of being in the office last Thursday whenever I decided to fill the building with my singing, because that's what I do whenever I write sermons. But normally my door is closed. And so you might hear a little bit of it, but the vast majority Megan has to hear in our office. But last Thursday, she begged for the door to stay open. And I said, all right, well, then I'm going to sing anyways. And I know Anna's there. And Anna really liked my rendition of These Are the Days of Elijah. So, so I know a couple chords on the guitar. That's about it, though. So even though I love music, I have pretty much zero musical ability whatsoever.
You don't sing that bad. I think the issue is
I do
that
when I want to.
You sing loud.
I do, and I don't know how to sing soft, which is part of not being a good singer.
Yeah.
Because I can only hit certain notes at certain decibels.
Yeah, I think it was like one of the first couple of months that I was here at the church, and I was like, "Hey, dude, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but can you sing on the side of me that has my headphone in?"
I've been told by multiple people on the stage when I used to stand in the front row that I was messing them up.
Oh,
so
no.
That's when I started standing in the back of the room until I come up to preach.
Yeah.
Because we had a keys player once that told me that she could hear me.
Yeah.
Singing, and then one of our old worship leaders told me.
I love it. I love being able to
me.
hear people sing. I think that's like one of the greatest things. Like
Full blast right in your face, my off-key voice, which is funny, though, because I used to stand in the back on Wednesday nights, too, when we used to have Wednesday night service, and the music's way chiller on those Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
So when I would sing, everyone in the room would hear me, and people would tell me, you should really sing on the worship team. Or this one lady, she was so sweet. She said, I absolutely love your voice. And I'm like, are you hearing what everyone else is hearing? What are you talking about? That's so sweet.
Yeah.
But I know I don't sing. I was in show choir.
Yeah.
So, I can match pitch whenever I'm, really focused in on it. But singing loud and obnoxious is kind of my thing now.
Yeah.
Especially because it drives Megan insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it really drives her insane because she's stuck in an office with me until we have more office space. So she's in there normally doing something that she needs to really concentrate on, and she's not anticipating the guy across, the room from her is just going to fill the air with the most ridiculous sounds.
He comes.
Yeah, I mean, and it is. And because I like so much different music, on 1 minute it could be The Days of Elijah by Twyla. What's her name? Twyla something. Twyla Paris, which is even an old version of that song.
Yeah.
And then I'll listen to something new, and it's all over the place, and I absolutely love it. But because I like all kinds of different music. Like my family growing up, we didn't for being raised in a Christian home, and somewhat there was probably more rules for me than the average kid as a Christian family. But when it came to music, we listened to a bunch of different music.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was this, what were some of the genres or styles of music that you were listening to, mainly?
Yeah, my mom has always liked oldies, so I liked oldies.
Yeah.
So 50s, 60s, 70s. Always liked that growing up. We were a country music family for the most part.
Yeah.
Growing up, because in Charleston, growing up, there was not a lot of Christian radio stations, if any. I think there was one. It's escaping me what it was called.
It's a relatively new concept.
Yeah. So all the Christians that I knew, for the most part, would listen to country music because at least they would mention God, even somewhat, rare, like sometimes in their music they would mention God.
Yeah.
And so all the Christians I knew would like listen to country music for the most part. And so we were big into country music. But like my dad has always loved Southern gospel, so he is like a Bill Gaither fanatic, which going to the Gaither concerts and stuff I don't mind whatsoever, because those people on that are fantastic singers.
Oh, and it's a good time. It's like you sing along with everything. I enjoy him as well.
Me and my sister both like. It's probably not our preferred style of music, but we both like Southern gospel music as well. I like contemporary. We liked what was considered contemporary Christian music in the 90s, DC Talk and Newsboys or
whatever was
like
found
that.
On that. Wow. This is what I call Christian music.
The Wow CDs were big. We liked those. We had a couple of those. I remember I want to say that I think the first CD I ever owned, though, and this was kind of like wild that my parents were on board with this, was Weird Al Yankovic. Yeah. And I still loved Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah.
And like that, I cannot remember which album it was, but I knew every single word to it.
That's funny.
Every single word to it. So somehow my parents were even cool with us having Weird Al, even though a lot of the stuff he did wasn't really inappropriate as much as it was goofy. But then, I mean, we would listen to pop music as well. Like, so it really was all over the place. Like even now, because I was in show choir, I like a lot of show tunes. Like I like watching musicals. Landon actually likes to watch musicals. I probably shouldn't say that on a podcast that all of his friends can one day get access to and terrorize him in high school.
Yeah.
But like we like watching musicals. So I like a lot of show tunes as well. I like the music in like Disney music as well.
I can't do it.
So like they're like really when it comes to me, I'm all over the board. I went through a phase in freshman year of college into and I still like it, where I was into 80s hair band.
Yeah.
I was like a huge Poison fan. Like absolutely loved Poison. Got into like Motley Crue and Styx and Kansas and a bunch of stuff from that, Bryan Adams, all that.
Yeah.
And then like, it was funny. That was like 2 years in college and the last 2 years of college. And it's funny how this changes when your friends change.
Yeah.
I guess the crowd I was into was really into rap then in my last 2 years of college. So I was like really into like, this was like right when Drake was getting big.
Yeah.
So I liked Drake, liked Lil Wayne, had the Carter 3 CD was like my absolute jam in my car. So like, I loved rap, and I still like rap, and I really like gangster rap because like I'm a big fan of Notorious B.I.G., but I don't listen to it just because a lot of it is just
trash.
Yeah, it is. It's not the type of life that I want to be a part of or listen to, and I don't like certain language and ideas popping into my head. So even though I will watch like documentaries and stuff on like Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac and the whole East West Coast rapper.
Yeah, because the television versions of these are all edited.
Yeah, so I'm like I'm like semi-obsessed with the Biggie and Tupac saga.
For a while there, I thought you were going to solve that crime.
I'm going to one day, I swear. Actually, I think they've already solved it, but it'll never come out. But like, it's really fascinating. So like, I like gangster rap, but I don't listen to it anymore just because I don't think it feeds my soul.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll try to like pop it on Spotify and be like, maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking it is, and it takes about 30 seconds of me going, nope, on to the next.
This is actually worse.
Yep, it's actually worse because there will be songs that I'll listen to and I'll go like, how did I ever used to sit through this?
Oh, I know.
This makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And like, 15 years ago, I knew every word to this, and I'm going, oh yeah, this is my jam, and I'm like, what was wrong with me thinking that this type of music was like, even as a non-Christian, like some of this stuff like should have made me be like, I don't think we should talk like that, just as human beings in general, and it just never. But like, yeah, I mean, from young age all the way till now, I just like last week when I was doing that sermon prep, because I like to listen to music. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of those people that like get into a room to write my sermon and everything has to be quiet and you can't interrupt me. I don't know whether it's adult ADD or I don't know what it is, but like the more distractions, the better I am at doing my job.
Yeah.
So like I'll put my headphones in with not the music down low, as loud as my headphones will allow it to go.
Yeah.
And then I sing on top of that, and then I'm normally getting glared at from across the room from Megan. And then like I still have my phone right there, and I'm checking my phone, and my computer's up, and I'm checking notifications on there while I'm writing. People are coming into the office. I like all of that distraction.
Yeah.
And so like even last week when I was doing that, I was listening to some mixture of like Southern gospel, contemporary Christian music, like just the most random Christian music when I'm doing that, just because I get bored of one style of music, and so I kind of hop around a little bit. But yeah, I do genuinely love just about all music. I can't think of anything that, I mean, probably not opera, classical.
There was actually I don't mind sharing secrets about anything that I have, and it's not even a secret because sometimes I'm sure if you walk through the halls in here, you'll hear me blaring some really obscure stuff. I'll listen to. I like opera. I like it. I don't even know what they're saying. I don't want to know what they're saying. I think it's gonna ruin it for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they're singing about washing clothes, and it's like the most beautiful song ever, I'm like, that's gonna ruin it for me. So I don't want to know what they're singing about.
I like the only opera that I like is when Scully sings opera on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, but that's funny. Like growing up, like same thing for me. It was kind of like Southern gospel. We had these. There was this Christian group that was around. They were called a cappella, and it was just they wrote all their own music, but they did all the voices and everything, like all the instruments with their voices. It was all Christian music, but it was, man, we listened to it all the time, and I think that's where like I really learned how to like harmonize and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was like my dad and all my brothers, and we would be driving somewhere, and he's like, all right, you take this part, you take this part. And so we were always flip-flopping or whatever. But then growing up, same thing. I love the quote-unquote, like the bubblegum oldies that you said from the 40s, 50s, 60s, all that era. I like the big band stuff, the hair band. I really got into like obscure, like alternative rock there for a while, like stuff that
I'm kind of into like 90s alt rock right now.
Yeah.
Like if I go outside of like Christian music, which I know that like, I know some Christians that won't listen to anything other than Christian music. I just like, if it's not like damaging music like gangster rap.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like into 90s alt rock right now. Like for some reason, do you know the song Freshman by The Verve?
Verve, yeah.
I don't know why, but I'm obsessed with that song.
Yeah.
And then like Blues Travelers and stuff like that. Like right now,
dude, I saw Blues Traveler.
Did you?
For $5.
When I get in my car and want to roll the windows down, and I just want to like feel a certain way.
Yeah.
That song, The Hook, just like
so good.
It's so chill. Like I don't know what it is. I don't even know what they're saying half of that song.
Yeah, whenever it speeds up at the end.
But like that song, just like so. Right now, I've been going back to like some alt rock from, and that's one of the things I love about Spotify.
Yeah,
it's like I get reintroduced to stuff that I used to know that I didn't know.
Yeah,
and so because you get these playlists that like I'll find one song that I like on Spotify. And now what I've started doing is you can click a button to make it go to that song radio.
Yeah.
And then it's all songs that are like that song. And then like something will pop on. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard this song forever. And it'll start like a obsession. Like I will listen to a song multiple times a day for like months in a row.
Yeah.
Like on a streak. Megan, like, why do you always listen to the same thing? I'm like, once I listen to it once, I'm like hooked. Like I want to keep going over and over and over and over and over.
That's funny, man. And then, like, it's funny, like, because you and I have, like, really, really similar stories. You know, we grew up in church, kind of went and did our own thing, and then God called us in the ministry later on in life. And so for us, like, when did you start to – I feel like whenever we both got saved, I mean, you've been saved a little bit longer than I have, but it's around that same time. It's like Christian music, like there was maybe one or two, maybe three groups that were really good, but a lot of it was like really cheesy.
Yeah.
It was the switching from getting out of singing hymns every Sunday, and they're trying to like they're like, okay, we need to do something new. And so, like, God bless them for trying, and opening up that door to where, like, singers and songwriters can come together and try to express themselves in a new way of worshiping God. But some of it was...
Yeah, a lot of it wasn't very good. But I'll tell you what'll blow your mind. Go look up all the stuff that Chris Tomlin's responsible for.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's unreal, the amount of influence that he had on that shift.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wrote and sang songs that you probably sang in church 100 times, and a lot of people, myself included, until I saw his name attached to it on Spotify, I was like, whoa, I didn't know he did that. Like, he had such a huge influence on a lot of the praise and worship music of the probably, late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
I mean, I remember when Megan and I were dating in 2009, we weren't even Christians, but one of us had a mix CD in our car that had Christian music on it. Yeah. And we put it in one day that we were driving around Morgantown. And we both knew them. They were like Chris Tomlin songs and stuff like that. And it's actually, it might have been one of those WOW commercials that actually had like a really big part in my personal journey to faith. Yeah. Because I was at college going through a really, really, really rough time with like a breakup and a bunch of different stuff, just making a lot of bad decisions. And I remember passing out on my friend's couch one night after a party, and I got woke up to a compilation Christian music album commercial. It was like an infomercial. And they're singing like "Shout to the Lord" and all these things that, like, I've heard these songs like because grew up in youth group and went to teen camp and all this, and I'm hearing this, and I remember watching this commercial for a little bit, and they're like singing all these songs because you know how they just sing a little bit of the snippet. I'm like, and it was one of the first times since I had gone off to college I had ever even thought about God whatsoever. Yeah. Once I got out of the house, I wasn't interested in playing the game anymore. Because I would kind of try to fake it. Oh yeah, when I was still at home. But like when I went away to college, I didn't care anymore. So like it was one of the first times. And now looking back, I can see that was one of those crucial moments. But it was songs like "Shout to the Lord" and "I Will Rise" that like just were on that commercial that I still remember those songs. But yeah, I mean, Chris Tomlin had such a hand in it, even though I don't really like his stuff now. Yeah. I think there's people that are, he just had his time. Yeah. Michael W. Smith was big.
Oh yeah, dude.
That transition.
Darlene Scheck was. Real
yeah,
big.
I mean, she sang "Shout to the Lord." Yeah. Like it just, and that's the song actually to my recollection that actually got Hillsong even on the map was.
Oh yeah, for sure.
"Shout to the Lord," and then from there it's like, now look what Hillsong has done, and and then they paved the way for a lot of the folks that we probably listen to the majority of, like Elevation Worship has been one of my favorite worship bands. Their early stuff was not very good, which they'll probably tell you that as well. Like their first album or two, like it was decent, but it really wasn't that good. Yeah, it was around the time probably that Only King Forever album came out. They started hitting their stride, and now their music's awesome. Yeah. Take it or leave it, how you feel about Bethel as a church, but their music program for the most part is putting out songs that really help me worship, for sure. But all of that comes back to guys like Chris Tomlin, Michael W. Smith. Yeah. There's probably even people even before that. DC Talk was like really pushing the boundaries with Michael Tate and Toby Mac and all that back. Jesus Freak was like a huge hit.
Oh well, I mean, non-saved people were buying it.
Oh yeah.
It was just I think it's still like on like the top 100 Christian like Billboard charts, like for purchases and stuff. Like people are still buying it by the truckloads.
The first time that the Newsboys came on, the Winter Jam tour comes through Charleston. This started probably about a decade ago now. The first time the Newsboys came and Michael Tate was their front man. I think that was the first year that he was the front man for Newsboys. He actually he sang Jesus Freak with the Newsboys at that first Winter Jam. And even all the young people that, like, I mean, Jesus Freak was, to my knowledge, in the early 90s.
Yeah, like 94, 95, I think.
Somewhere around there. So these kids that weren't even thought of at that point,
oh, yeah,
know this song. And, like, it's just wild. And I think Newsboys you could throw in there with Chris Tomlin and them. I'm not a huge fan, but they also helped with a lot of that transition. There's probably even more if you got really into it, but
yeah, I think one of the great things about like that whole era and what it's led to today is, like I said, it's allowed like churches to have music programs that write music specifically for their church, and then other churches use it as well to lead others in worship and have a new way of thinking of Jesus and his character and the way that he loves us. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, like the importance of worship in the church. Like, it's one of the things that we kind of see throughout we read about David, and he writes all of the Psalms and these ways to express himself, but also, like, why is it important for us to corporately come together and worship Jesus?
Well, and we talked about this the last couple of weeks in our sermon series, Inception, that from the beginning, humanity was created as the image bearers of God, which meant we were to reflect God to creation. But the other side of that coin was we were also supposed to reflect the praises of creation back to the Creator. So in our essence, we are made as worshipers. Mm-hmm. And we know this to be true. We will worship something. Whether or not we choose that to be God, we will worship something. We will worship, ourselves. We will worship culture. We will worship our political ideology or substances or pleasure. We're going to worship something. Or whatever stirs up our affections in our heart gets tied to it, and that is worship, because worship is anything that you're giving worth to. Anything that has weight in your life is worship. And so that's the importance of it for the Christian, is you're actually like living out what it means to be genuinely human when you are worshiping the one who made you. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. There's this like passage in Romans 8 that talks about how the created order groans in anticipation for the sons of God. This is my version of it, to essentially remember who you are and step up and be who you're supposed to be. Because like the creation is groaning out for us to step up and be those people, and part of that is worship. Yeah. And so it's such an essential part of the Christian life. But then as far as the corporate church coming together to do that together, like it breaks down walls for people so much. Like for me, before I was able to take the step really to make these big changes in my life or decide that I'm going to follow Christ or whatever, it always started from the music. For me. There was just something about music that has a way of breaking down walls that helps a message get through. And so that's why, like for me, worship and the word are just intimately tied together because one of them is setting the stage for the other. And they both kind of play back and forth, which is why here at our services we do music, we do the word, then we do music. Yeah. Just because I just feel it all flows together. And so, I mean, worship is essential. It's, when we're talking about singing, that's why. I mean, worship happens more than just singing, though. Anything that we do that is resulting in praise going up for God is an act of worship. But for this topic we're talking about, specifically music, there's just, and I mean something to kind of think about too is just because you're singing doesn't mean that you're worshiping. Either. I mean, so growing up in the church, I always sang the songs. I always liked them. Even as a rebellious teenager who was not a Christian, I liked the music that we sang in church a lot of times at like youth conventions and stuff. So I would sing. But I wasn't worshiping because God didn't have my heart whatsoever. And so, like, it's possible to come in and have almost a religious experience and actually it not be worship because And I think that there's going to be some people that literally you watch them every single Sunday in churches all over the world. They're the loudest singers, and their hands are always raised, and they're having these emotional reactions to the music. They're not actually worshiping because they're not actually interested in living out that commitment that they sing about on Sunday the rest of the week.
Yeah, so good. One of the things I like about whenever we come together and worship is being able to be in the same room with like-minded people, and we're all focused on the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you said, it tears down walls, but not only that, but it's like, hey, like, I know that you're struggling with something. Like, you and we've talked about this. You know, I'm not saying, like, I'm just using this as an example, but like, you have shared your story with me and how, like, all this has gone on in your life, and you've got all these things against you right now, but you're taking a moment to worship Jesus.
Yeah.
And what that does for me is it builds me up. It's the Bible says that we get together and we sing songs and hymns and spiritual songs, and we edify and build each other up, doing that. And whenever somebody else displays faith like that, it gives me the encouragement to be able to, whenever I know that I'm going to go through these things in my life, to stay true to my faith. Even though, I mean, because let's face it, like, whenever the world is coming at you, it's really difficult because our eyes are not focused on Jesus, but remembering how somebody went through those things, and even though they were hurting, and even though they were in pain and they were dealing with those things, they still focus on Jesus. Like, that gives me hope that I know that I can do it whenever it's my turn to go through those things.
Yeah, I get built up by that. Like, when I'm standing in a room where people are singing and worshiping, as the pastor of those people, I know their stories. Yeah. And so I get built up by, like, oh, I know what she's been going through, and here she is able to still pour her heart out. Yeah. And so for me, like, this is probably something I don't even know if I've ever even said this publicly, but I'm just going to say it anyways. One of the things that, like, so my guess is if you're listening to this, you probably know my story pretty well. I struggle with anxiety issues. And one of the things that makes my anxiety worse is that I always feel like if the things that I'm most afraid of happen, that I'm not going to be strong enough and I'm going to crumble. Yeah. And so I have that fear in my head. So whenever I come into a place of worship and I'm able to watch somebody that is worshiping, and I know what that person just lost their spouse. Yeah. And here they are, and they're still standing strong. Yeah. That, like, for me, in the midst of my worship, I can look at that and also be built up by their worship. Yeah. Because I'm going like, well, wait a second. Maybe what my mind is telling me that if this happens, you're going to crumble. You're not going to be able to make it. Maybe that's not actually true, because here's an example right in front of me. Like, oh, this person, I know they're having financial issues. And watch as they stand here and worship. This person has lost a child. This person got laid off. This person just found out that they've got cancer. And to watch, to know all the stories in the room, standing there together worshiping, I am built up by that in my spirit, because then I go like, oh, maybe that, through God, maybe I am stronger than what I think I am, because I'm seeing it in other people. Yeah. And that's one of the beautiful things. And when the church comes together, yes, we're diverse, and yes, there's all this other stuff, but we also, like, we're all coming in with all these different pains. And it's a testament to the fact that the world's not going to end up winning, that Satan doesn't end up winning. Yeah. When the body of Christ comes together, beaten and bruised after another week of living, after all the stuff that we put each other through and all the things that we do to one another, and we come together to focus in that moment, and we're still standing strong, it's like that's the type of stuff that when Jesus said that the gates of hell will not prevail, like, the thing that shakes the gates of hell is like a beaten and bruised and battered church showing up on Sunday mornings, and they're still standing in victory, able to worship, because the week might have thrown everything they had at them. They threw their best at them, and it still wasn't enough to take down the church. It still wasn't enough to take down the body of Christ. And so sometimes I get caught up in service watching people worship, because I'm just like, wow, man, look at the strength of someone that
Yeah.
I know what they've been going through. That was one of the beautiful things. When I was in Nicaragua like 8 years ago, and like I didn't even know what these people were singing.
Yeah.
But I was watching this one lady, and she's like just pouring her heart out, crying and singing and hands raised. And I literally, they could have been singing about anything whatsoever, but like, she's been going through something. You can just see it, and then to see her there in the midst of it, worshiping and stuff, it has a strengthening quality when we do it together as well, because, that's not the case for everyone. Yeah. Some people find it hard to worship in the middle of storms and things like that. And so whenever I see someone that can worship at their worst, like that does something for me.
Yeah.
Like, really, really profound.
Yeah, it lifts my spirits for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the importance of like the opposite end of that spectrum is worshiping by yourself. Mm-hmm. Your personal time of worship. And I think that it looks different. Obviously, it's different for everybody. And but I want to talk about like why it is important to spend time by yourself worshiping God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really comes from the fact that what we said earlier, we're going to end up worshiping something.
Yeah.
So if we don't fill our life with worship of God, then we're going to fill our life with the worship of something else. And I mean, there's just those times where you just need, if you're waiting every 7 days to get worship in the Word, and that's the only time you're getting it, then you are going to be malnourished all week long.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you the way that certain songs will just hit me throughout the week, and that will be the thing that I need to get through, the rest of the week or whatever it is. Like, so you just won't ever have all that you need if you're only worshiping and getting the Word one day a week.
Yeah.
Because worship has to be a private practice. Honestly, it should be a private practice before it's a public practice. I get a little skeptical of folks who are really like showy in worship, and yet I'm not sure that what's happening on Sunday morning is translating to Wednesday or whatever it is. Like that like for me, it's like long before you go public with these like grandiose acts of worship, you need to make sure that you have a private worship life first, because the public outpouring of our spirituality, it should just be an overflow of what's happening privately. Sunday morning should be a continuation of what's been going on the rest of the week.
Yeah.
But for some people, it's like an event. It's like the only thing going on.
Yeah.
Whereas, it should be this continuous like life of worship every single day.
Something just popped in my head. It's like intermittent fasting, I think, can be good for your physical body, but it's not good for your spirit.
No.
It's not one of those things to where you're like, I'm just gonna not do this and then everything's gonna be okay. It's not like
no.
It's allowing other things to take your time, your focus and your time on, instead of like allowing just those moments to be focusing on Jesus. Whenever we were sitting down talking about the show notes for this past Monday, one of the things that I'd mentioned to you, I said, if Sundays are the only time that you are worshiping, you are not dependent on God. Mm-mm. You're more self-dependent, because you're saying, I can get through this week without you, God. I think there's a healthy reliance that comes on God whenever we take time throughout the week and acknowledge Him for what He has done and who He is, and I always want to be reliant and dependent on God, because anytime I've ever tried to do things by myself, I've screwed it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't able to get sober by myself. I wasn't able to be a good husband by myself. I wasn't able to be a good dad by myself. I had to allow Jesus to come into my life and work in those areas for me to be a better husband, a better Christ follower, a better dad, just a better person all around. So, I mean, I always want to be reliant on Jesus.
Yeah, and that's one of the roles of worship. It's another way that we just declare again, when we're worshiping, again, we're saying this is the thing that has the most worth in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're refocusing and recentering our life on that object of worship. And so it's a daily reminder that, like, no, I'm not in charge. I'm not the center of the universe. I'm not, like, this whole day is not about me.
Yeah.
And it's just a reminder of that. Like, I'm not out here living for me. I've got a greater purpose, a more grand vision for my life, and it's centered around God's vision, and centered around God and not about me whatsoever. That's like the beautiful thing about worship, is it has a way of taking our eyes off of ourselves and putting our eyes where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why if you're not doing it consistently throughout the week, your eyes are going to be far too often on yourself or on your circumstances and never on God. And therefore, you're going to get beat down and roughed up throughout the week.
Yeah.
When that's where your focus is at. And I'm not saying that, like, me or you, either one, do this perfectly. I'm speaking from a place of authority because of the fact I know what it's like to go a week without worship and focus too much on myself or what I've got going on, and I'm like a disaster on those weeks. So I can speak authoritatively because I've been there and done that, and probably will be there and do that again at some point in my, ignorant future, whenever I just find, I don't have time for this or whatever it is, and I try to lean on my own strength in those moments. I'm going to be a disaster that week.
Yeah. One of the things that there's this shift in minds, or there's this mindset that whenever it comes to worship, I've got to bring something because of, like, the way that the Old Testament was done. Mm-hmm. Worshiping, like, this is how we worship. I bring in my crops to the temple and they burn it, or an animal and they sacrifice it. But in Psalms 51, David is saying this as he's praising and worshiping God. He says, "You do not." This is Psalms 51 verses 16 and 17. It says, "You do not desire a sacrifice, or I would offer one. You do not want a burnt offering. The sacrifice you desire is a broken spirit. Yeah. You will not reject a broken and a repentant heart." And that's like the type of, like, mentality I always want to come with whenever I come to worship God, whether it's in my personal time or as I lead people in worship on Sunday. It's great that God has given me a talent to be able to do certain things, but I want, and I think it's good to do things with excellence, but I want, at the bottom of it, I want God to see, like, I'm broken and I am desperate. Mm-hmm. And I need you, like, right now in this moment. Even though I'm trying to lead somebody in worship or even lead myself, like, I'm just a broken vessel. Lord, here I am. Yeah. Like, use it to the best of your ability that you can use it. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's it says that so often in the Old Testament. It's like, oh, you don't desire sacrifice. You would rather have, a contrite spirit, a repentant heart, obedience, all these other things. All these things that were less quick to give. Yeah. Because giving an offering of some sort would be way easier.
Well, it kicks the ball further down the road.
And so, I mean, having the right heart in it is just going to be, having the right mindset about what it is that you're there to do. And I don't know. I think maybe practically speaking, there has to be some sort of preparation for worship as well. Like, I think that some people never really experience the time of worship when they're at church on Sundays because they woke up late. They had 3 kids to get ready. They were rushing out the door. They jumped in the car. They ran through the drive-thru. They got here. They grabbed their coffee. They dropped their kids off. They come in the middle of, like, the second song. By the time that they have been able to settle their hearts and their minds to focus on what they're ready to do, they've missed it. Yeah. And I think maybe for some people they're missing out on worship opportunities because they're not being real intentional about making sure that I'm prepared for worship. Yeah. Like the practice that we have here we have a worship time for the all the people involved in the service before we go and lead in worship has been transformative for me as a way of like getting ready, like so shifting from whatever it was that I was doing leading up to the service, and now it's like a centering time where I can focus on what I'm getting ready to do. And like, so it's a preparatory time where I can be in prayer, where I can be in worship, and now I'm actually ready for the worship experience that I'm a part of. Whereas for the average churchgoer, they're flying by the seat of their pants, just barely trying to get here.
Yeah.
And you come in, and they're not mentally or spiritually ready for worship either. And so I think the role, like the worshiper, has to also take that upon themselves to make sure they're ready to show up with the right spirit, with the right thing, because unfortunately there's just not participation trophies when it comes to this. Like, hey, well, at least I showed up. It's like, yeah, but if you don't show up in the right way for the right reasons, like, you'll ultimately end up missing out on what it is that God wants to do in your life in this moment. And so we need to come to worship prepared to worship, with our hearts and minds ready for that.
Yeah. Whenever I talked to you about doing that in the beginning before services, I knew that it was one of those things that's like, it's one of those things where you begin to see culture shift. Mm-hmm. Not that what we were doing before service was bad, because we were taking time and just sharing life with other people. And I think that's so important, but I honestly thought that I was going to get like horsewhipped and beaten by the worship team. But I knew that it was just the way that we wanted to shift things as a worship team to where we can still go out there and have those fun moments, mm-hmm. but our hearts were super prepared and super ready.
Yeah. Well, I've had people come as guest speakers and things since we started doing that have been in that environment, that have left going like, I'm taking this back to my church.
Yeah.
Our worship team should be doing this. Our pastors should be doing this before we ever get ready to go try to lead other people. Like, we already have to be there. And for me, it takes some of the pressure out of the service, because like I remember those mornings where you're trying to get ready to lead worship or to preach, and that time of worship or whatever it is in the service, like, you are technically, like, yes, you are leading in worship, but you're also having to sit there thinking about the notes that you're trying to sing and what you're trying to play, and don't mess up because you're also trying to usher other people into a moment of worship. And so on your side, where it's so technically focused on at sometimes, for me, like when I go to preach, sometimes it's hard for me to focus on that. But now that there's this time of worship before the service starts, I can have my heart and mind ready to go and preach.
Yeah.
So I can go into the service and I'm ready. I don't have to sit there and like throw a Hail Mary and like, all right, I got 10 minutes to get ready to preach, mentally prepare and all this. It's like, no, I've already taken care of all of that before I walk in. And so now I can be part of the service, ready to go.
Yeah.
And I don't have to, like, it was, I used to have this like, well, what if I need to go to the restroom or something during one of the 3 songs before I speak?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't do that because I've got to take all 15 minutes that I have of music to get myself ready. But now I'm already ready like 45 minutes before I ever even step up on stage. And so what's happening at the beginning of the service is just supplementing something that's already been happening in my heart. And it makes me better in the service to already have that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. What I've noticed too is like I was constantly focusing on things that are important, but not necessarily at the moment. Mm-hmm. And so with certain mixes or whatever, and allowing myself just to say, God, like, I'm here right now. Like, I just need to take this time and focus on you. Then all those other things, they line up, and I don't have to worry about them. Mm-mm. Like, we've done a good enough job throughout the week addressing those issues, and having those conversations. And then just having it's God just saying, hey, you need to rely and trust on your team to get the job done, and don't do it all by yourself. Because if I wasn't taking time to worshiping, like before we do our services, I would still have that mindset of I've got to do everything by myself. It's allowed me to trust others and rely on others for ministry to like really, really work out.
Yep.
Hey, what's your favorite worship song currently?
That's hard because it changes all the time. I think my favorite worship song, though, and it's been this way for probably a year, is still King of Kings.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Like, one of them because my wife sings it here at our church, and I think she kills it. But second off, I just love, like, it's lyrically beautiful. It tells a great story. It builds, like, just everything. And I just think it's flawless, like, as far as worship goes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's other stuff that I really, really like. I don't know that there's anything on that level, though, for me right now. And that's been like that. Like, you would think it would be something new because I do latch on to new songs.
Yeah.
And I normally, like, try to be on, like, the front edge of whatever's coming out. But, like, King of Kings has just been doing it. Like, I could listen to it probably 100 times today, and I wouldn't get tired of it.
Yeah. Mine is Prodigals. I'm like really getting it. I mean, ever since I heard it, whenever we went to Drive Conference in Atlanta, sung by North Point Worship, it was like, man, this is like my story in a stinking song. And so I was like, I wish I could lead it, but it's led by a female, and it's like way too high.
Yeah. So I'm right now.
We'd already done it if it was a male-led song.
Yeah. Jeremy Camp just came out with a song called "Getting Started."
Yeah.
Which normally I don't like gravitate to radio songs.
Yeah.
But that song right now also is really hitting me. And then it's kind of the song "Be All Right." It's another radio song with Evan Kraft, Danny Goki.
Yeah.
Like, it has like a Spanish, some Spanish lyrics in it.
Yeah.
Whatnot. Really like that. And what is it? Prize Worth Fighting For?
Yeah.
All three of those radio songs that I wouldn't necessarily consider like usable for church services, but like for radio songs, like those three have been hitting me good too. But like, man, King of Kings is just. I like Prodigals as well. I like that. Well, there's another one on that album that we're gonna do eventually.
We've already done it.
What's the one called? This Is My Story.
Oh yeah.
Is that what it's called?
I know which one you're talking about. It's all
them hymns.
It takes like all the big poppin' lines from all the hymns. Yeah.
Like, I really like that one off of that album too, and like because for me, like, I've always been a fan of contemporary, like, of the contemporary worship. I think we missed the worship wars. I think that happened a little bit before our time. But, like, I don't understand the fight against it when the scriptures over and over and over again talk about singing a new song.
Yeah.
But no one ever said, like, that had to be to the exclusion of old songs.
Correct.
Either. Because, like, I still love certain hymns, but I don't want them to be sang I don't want them to. They might have been written 100 years ago, but I don't want them to feel like I'm singing them 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That's my problem with the way that most folks, like, either they'll do hymns and they'll do them like they were made 100 years ago, like they would still sing them 100 years ago. There's not been any update to the beat or the delivery of it whatsoever. It's like, oh gosh, man, like, I feel like you want the music in your services to sound at least somewhat like what people are listening to outside of the building.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sorry, if I'm not listening to an organ in my car, why would I want to show up and listen to that on Sunday?
Yeah.
Like, play me that song, play me Amazing Grace, but have enough foresight as the worship pastor or the worship leader to go, but let's do it in this version. Let's do it in this way that will resonate with a 2022 audience. Because there's nothing wrong with those songs. Now, you know me. Some of those songs I have major theological issues with, which is why we won't sing some of them unless we can cleverly change the lyrics to.
Yeah.
Which we won't even, I'm not even going to open that can of worms just in case someone's watching.
I'll fly away.
Yeah.
I'll say it. I don't care.
I'll fly away. No, here's the funny thing. I like that song.
Well,
I just don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Except for, and like, I should say, I do agree with it if we can agree on certain parameters of what it means. But I know what the intention behind when we sing it means. And so, therefore, it's easier for me to not. We had this conversation at Easter time here at Southridge. And, like, I probably drive the staff here insane, just by the way. Like, I don't mean to be, but I am a theological stickler. And if I don't want us to sing something that will directly contradict something that I might teach.
Yeah.
And so because our focus here is not I'll fly away from the created order, you know, we don't sing I'll fly away because we think that God made creation on purpose and for a purpose, and that ultimately his eternal plan involves creation.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea that we need to escape the material world for some ethereal, spiritual existence where we're just floating around like spirits out in, like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever if you actually read the Bible the way that you should read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense, so I don't want to sing about that because that's not what we're talking about in the first place.
Yeah.
So there are certain songs that, like, but that's true of anything, any theological issue that would come up in a song. If a song,
correct,
you know, if a song were to, you know, be preaching in essence something that I don't agree with,
yeah,
even if it's not about, you know, I'll fly away, like it could be a contemporary song. If I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh, man, I don't know if I agree with that. There was a song by North Point Worship. Now this was funny. This would have been, and North Point's the one that does Prodigals for those of you listening. And there's a song that they do called Written. It was the last time I went to Drive Conference, they played it.
Yeah.
And the bridge of it is essentially, they say, it can never be taken from you, on and on and on. Okay, so I know North Point comes from a very, very Baptist background. You know, Charles Stanley, Andy Stanley, coming from a Baptist background. So I know when you're saying it can't be taken from you and all this, that you are singing eternal security type lyrics, which I'm not as far removed from that doctrine as most people in the Church of God might be, but I am not a proponent of it completely. So therefore I had issues with that song, and we didn't do it here.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I don't want to sing something that maybe, even though we don't focus on the doctrine of eternal security here one way or another that much, on the one day, let's say that it might come up because of the text that we're preaching, I don't want us to sing a song that might directly contradict what it is I'm getting ready to preach. Like, even though for me it's not a big deal, I've got to think about the people sitting in the seats, because I myself love Written. So in my car, I will sing that bridge for all it's worth.
Yeah.
Because it means something to me, and I'm able to theologically parse it and compartmentalize it in a way that it works for me. But if I sang it to a bunch of people that maybe then heard a sermon over here and they go like, wow, those two things don't seem like they're lining up, they might not be able to do that because they don't have all the theological context or the musical context that I have in those two. So I don't want to create confusion for them by singing stuff that I actually, maybe I believe it, but I believe it for a different reason.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I could probably look at the lyrics of I'll Fly Away and say, yes, I agree with those, but here's how I agree with them. But if I've got to sit there and explain it to you for it to theologically line up for me, I don't want to sing it, because every time we sing it, then I would feel like I'd have to stand up and go like, all right, well, before we sing I'll Fly Away, here's what we mean. We don't mean the whole Gnostic idea of escaping, reality and all. We don't mean.
So it's like, whenever we sing this, I want you to think about it in this term.
Yeah, and if you got to do that, it's just not going to work.
I already do enough talking in between songs, right?
You would have to give a sermon every time on, well, we're going to sing this, and here's why it's okay to sing this.
Yeah.
I would rather sing something like for God so, or what's it called? God so loved.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no like explanation needed. We get it. That's John 3:16. We get it. 100%.
It's easy for somebody who's never been in church and then they came in and listened to it. They can understand it. there's there's this one song that I absolutely love, but I can't do it because theologically it doesn't line up.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be super confusing for someone who came in here and they'd been like, okay, where's the holy water so I can put it on my skin?
Oh, yeah.
It's
what is that? The name of the song is Holy Water,
yeah.
right?
I love that song because the verses are amazing. God, I'm on my knees again. God, I'm begging here.
It's so funny that
I
say
need
that.
you. I'm in this moment, I need you. And they're talking about his forgiveness. It's like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. I get it. It's sweet. It's kind of refreshing, like honey. Whenever you get it, you understand it. That's how I can picture God's forgiveness. It's like a symphony. It's the first time I've ever heard a symphony, and it's ringing in my ears. It's beautiful. God's forgiveness is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like holy water on my skin. I'm like, give me the bucket. Where's the bucket of holy water?
Because there's a cultural connotation that comes along with holy water that's mixed up with a Catholic connotation of it. That could. Yeah, I would totally agree. I would think that song would be super confusing because when we're trying to think of what songs we're going to do here at Southridge, and it's not even just songs, just anything that we really do, we're trying to run through the filter of there's now a whole generation of people that have never gone to church.
Yeah.
The generation before us really stopped going to church by and large.
Yeah.
Now their kids are even further removed from it.
Yeah.
So you can have people showing up in your church right now that literally have no idea what you're talking about with what you think is the most basic Christian language out there. So we try to be super mindful of the songs that we sing and such, so that way they're easy to grab a hold of and don't create more questions. This was one of the reasons when Reckless Love, is that what it's called?
Oh, dude, whenever I introduced that at the previous church I was at, I had to take 5 minutes and just say.
When it first came out, I was so burdened to think, well, we're going to be in a service and you're going to sing, what is he leaves the 99.
Yeah, for the one.
And I was like, well, what if someone doesn't know that story?
Yeah.
Then for me, I was like, well, the only way that we'll be able to use this song is if you either introduce it every single time. Hey, go to Luke chapter 15. There's a story of Jesus. He left the 99 to go after the one. Okay, well, then every Sunday that you sing Reckless Love, if you do that little sermonette before you sing it, then they would understand. Now, eventually, sometimes all of this that I've been sitting here railing about for the last 15 minutes, eventually sometimes I feel like the Lord just whispers to me and goes, just shut up. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll take care of it. And so we just started singing Reckless Love. We probably used the Luke 15 passage the first time that we did it.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was just you know what? We'll figure it out. Honestly, I had that same reservation about Pour Your Spirit Out, but I never insisted that we get up and talk about how Paul and Silas were in prison and, they were worshiping and then the walls came down. I never felt the burden to do that. Even though there could be people sitting in the audience going
who's Paul and Silas?
Who's Paul and Silas and what the heck are you talking about?
That would kind of intrigue me. If I didn't know anything about it and I'm like, man, I really like this song and I hear somebody singing about it. I'm going, all right. I would find somebody and be like, hey, tell me about this Paul and Silas. What the heck's happening? What do you mean? The walls fell down?
Yeah. So sometimes I have a tendency to go too far and then be a hindrance to what God wants to do.
Yeah.
And then those moments, with Pour Your Spirit Out, I just have to go. It's okay. It's okay if people don't know who Paul and Silas are. They'll probably figure it out eventually. Yeah. But they're not going to miss the point. The whole song doesn't hinge on who Paul and Silas is.
Yeah.
Right. It's a song of transformation. So I don't have to be so overly crazy about that. But we rejected a song for this Easter. I don't even what is it? It's a hymn.
No, we don't need to ruin people's days.
I know. It's a hymn.
It's a very well-known hymn.
A very well-known hymn we rejected for Easter this year.
Yeah.
Because it has, when it talks about what our home is.
Yeah.
They speak of our home not being creation. And I just theologically disagree with that. And so we said, nope, we're not going to sing that song.
Yeah, because the Bible clearly says that we will spend eternity in the new heavens and the new earth.
Yeah. And so to call something else my home, like we used to do, I just, and again, some of this was my ignorance early on in ministry. We used to sing the Building 429 song. It says, the whole thing is about how this is not my home. Oh gosh, what is that song
I
called?
don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
All right, I'm gonna find it real quick.
So it's basically they're singing about like hey, let's
Where I Belong.
Where I Belong.
Yeah, it's called Where I Belong. Gosh, I wish I had I'll find the lyrics.
The only Where I Belong song I know is from, I think, Tim McGraw. Or That's Where I Used to Be.
So it says, all I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. So it's huge on the radio.
Yeah.
We used to sing it here. Well, I didn't know this at that time whatsoever. I didn't understand the Bible well enough at that moment when we used to sing this. But this was before I was the lead pastor, so it was somebody else's call at that point. But like, all I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. And it's actually like, well, I'm not sure that's actually true. And then this whole idea, like, take this world but give me Jesus. Like, all of that stuff that talks about trying to escape the created order is a Gnostic, which is like a first century heresy of the church, an enemy of the church. This whole idea that the material world is bad and we need to escape it, that's what the Gnostics taught. How did the church come to sing so many songs with Gnostic theology in it? I don't understand whatsoever.
Yeah.
But like there's like a reclamation of that good theology that I see happening.
Yeah.
And I want to be part of it. I want our church to be part of it because it resonates, I think, first off because it's true, but it resonates because it's offering a picture of the future that resonates with our current culture.
Yeah.
Like for me as a kid, like the whole
I don't want to leave. And the reason for that is that whenever I am spending eternity with God, it's the way that I worship him for eternity will be completely different than what it is here on earth.
Mm-hmm.
My reliance and dependence on him is so strong while it's here on earth because of my sinful nature, and it's me recognizing that I need more of Jesus. Whenever I'm around Jesus, will I be focused on sin and what it used to have a hold of? No, because in his presence is going to be the fullness of joy and a new spiritual body to where I'm not held down by the things of this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like my eternity with Jesus is going to be different. So I enjoy being here. And it's kind of weird. Like it's a different way of the way that I look at worship. Like I rely so much on Jesus. Is my reliance still going to be there in eternity? Because I'm already going to be there.
The worship of eternity is going to be like we'll finally be able to see God as he really is for the first time. Like we'll be able to renew that intimate connection with him the way that humanity had it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's why we do have to be careful about the songs that we sing, because what we sing, music has a way of passing by. I think, and I am not a fan, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, of Bill Johnson at Bethel, but he has a quote that talks about how music passes by, like has an ability to pass by kind of our natural barriers to kind of get to something deeper. And I actually do believe what he's saying there, even though I would not agree with him on the vast majority of things he's ever written or said.
Yeah.
But like I do agree on this point, but I would add for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Like music has a way of getting behind our barriers for better or for worse. So we better make sure that what we're singing is what we actually believe. Because if not, we could do a lot of damage through songs that we're singing with trying to now reprogram, people into, well, we just sang this, but then like the sermon, you get up there and you say something different. You're like, well, what in the world's going on here? That doesn't seem like they because I got advice about that song. I was telling you, the North Point song, Written. I really wanted to do it so bad. I was at the point I was going to be like, I don't even think anyone other than me cares. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just going to sing the song, and they're not sitting there thinking about whether or not this is promoting eternal security theology or not. They're just going to sing it, and it's such a killer song, they're not going to care. And then, like, a couple other people around me were like, yeah, man, who cares? Just sing it. And then, like looking back, I'm like, I'm glad we never ended up singing that song.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to confuse somebody or cause them, I would rather sing songs that I feel fall safely within the theology that I feel doesn't need a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that churches do have to be careful of their songs and their song choices. Even going back to the old hymns, not even theologically, some of it is just the words. Like, there's words in some of these old hymns that, like, I don't even know what they mean. And I mean, so it's like, do you really think, go look at the lyrics of the song "Come Thou Fount." There are, like, "Here I raise my Ebenezer."
The last time I heard that name was whenever we were talking about the Christmas story or whatever.
Yeah. "Here I raise my Ebenezer." He's talking about a stone that was raised up. It's an Old Testament type. You'd have to be an Old Testament scholar or have a master's in Christian ministries or the Bible or something to understand that if you didn't get raised up around a culture that talked like that. And so, like, I love "Come Thou Fount," but there's a lot of lyrics in it that to a modern audience, people are going to go like... I was
just about to say that, too. Like, "Come Thou Fount" is...
I love that song.
It sounds like a death metal band
and it's
lyric.
Like, yes, you're just like... But I'm not certain that, like, everyone in the room is going to know what you're saying.
Yeah. We want the gospel to be clear.
Yeah.
We want people to be drawn to it and not raise questions and not confuse people. Jesus, I mean, he did come and talk about parables, but he simplified the gospel down to where even the simplest of minds understood it and were drawn to what he was saying.
Yeah. Well, I think your music just needs to reflect the culture that you are a part of.
Okay, then we're doing disco this Sunday.
You think we live in disco culture?
I don't know, but we are in West Virginia.
Well, there's
the moonshine culture.
There's a sense in which there's a lot of churches in West Virginia that are still doing Southern gospel, and I don't disagree with their model of ministry because they are singing the type of music that a lot of West Virginians still listen to, like as a gospel bluegrass type music. They are looking at their culture and going, okay, and so that's not necessarily out of line because you have to exegete your culture and know what your culture is all about and what they will tolerate and what they won't tolerate, and then that's how you should make your decision on the music in your church based on the culture that surrounds you and not just your own personal preference.
Yeah. Where do the snakes come into all this?
Snakes. That's so funny. One of the churches, Megan and them actually just visited down the road a couple weeks ago because Landon's baseball got rained out, so they went to New Heights, and they're awesome down there. But their pastor Will was just posting pictures from VBS, and they did a night on creation. I guess they have a congregant or somebody there that owns snakes, so they brought him in for the kids to see because they were talking about creation and all of this. And so he like went in and made a disclaimer on the post, like, we are not a snake handling church. And look, in West Virginia, you have to do that because when I was in seminary, we had to watch YouTube videos. I'm the only guy, because I was on a online class, I'm the only guy in the whole class from West Virginia. We get this assignment, go watch these YouTube videos because we're learning about snake handling churches. And you'll never guess where the church was that we were watching the videos for.
In West Virginia.
About an hour south of right where we're sitting right now. And this was like pretty recent.
Yeah.
And so.
Was it that one where that dude got bit?
Oh, these dudes get bit constantly.
Yeah,
like
I've heard people dying.
If you went and found these videos, which I could probably find them on YouTube still, like they'll tell you they do not go to the hospital because they don't. They believe that would be a lack of faith.
Yeah.
Like you pick up the serpents by faith. If they strike you, so be it. It's in God's hand at that point. So some of these people had literally been bitten like dozen times.
I think it's God's will for me to leave them jokers outside.
I'm not touching a snake, not for any reason. I don't even care if it's a non-poisonous snake. I'm not touching it for no reason. I promise you, I wouldn't be worshiping in that at that point. You bring the snakes out, that's not going to be an act of worship for me.
No.
I am going to lose my mind. I'm terrified of snakes.
Really?
Terrified.
Huh.
But I'm also unbelievably interested in them. We should do a whole episode on snakes. I'm really interested in them, but also terribly, actually, maybe the whole episode should be my fears or things that I don't like. we could do months and months worth of that if you ask my wife.
That's what we're doing. Fears. I'm writing it down.
Yeah.
Fears and dislikes.
Like, it's on there,
I'm
man.
so looking forward to this. That's coming up at the end of September, everybody.
But yeah, snakes, we do not get along. I don't know many people that do get along with snakes, but that looks like my handwriting.
All right, it's time for the mystery meat.
That looks like my handwriting.
Yeah. What was the worst haircut you ever had?
Worst haircut? Well, I'll tell you, if you ask my mom, my grandmother buzzed my head like this whenever I was like 8. She was not happy because I had really nice hair as a child.
Yeah.
Not anymore. So if you ask my mom, that would have absolutely been the worst. The worst thing that I've ever did in my life to my hair. I've preached about this before, but it's been a while. And I can't find any of the pictures for it either. My mom doesn't seem to have any.
This is before social media.
Yeah.
Or it may have made its way onto MySpace, but you've deleted your account since then.
I think it was 6th and 7th grade in my middle school, all the really cool guys had those frosted tips. So
I've heard this story.
Yeah. So I wanted frosted tips. My mom's friend, her son knew how to do them or whatnot, so he comes over and he does them.
Yeah.
He puts the cap on me, pulls the little, you pull the hair out.
Yeah.
Then you frost the tips or whatever. Well, take the cap off and look, and I just had my hair laid down like this. Well, whenever you don't have it spiked up, it literally just are these big circles all over your head. You look like a leopard. Well, I never had the type of hair that would do the frosted tips thing. It wouldn't stand up.
Yeah.
At all. And it was almost more of like to my recollection, it was more of not frosted and more like orange.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the feel of your hair. I was like, your recollection, has it been that long since you haven't had hair?
It has been a while. So they looked like these like orange splotches.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
when I saw myself, and I could not ever to get it to not look like you have these big orange dots everywhere, you would always have to have your hair spiked.
Yeah.
Well, only my bangs were the only thing that would ever spike.
Yeah.
Ever. So the rest of my hair where all these splotches are would not spike. So I was like in a predicament because once you dye your hair, it's too late to have a change of heart about it.
Yeah.
And so we're like sitting in my living room. This guy's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I mean, what are my options, man? And my mom's like, do you just want him to dye the whole thing? And I'm like, yep, let's do that. So my mom and this guy bleached my whole head. I looked like Slim Shady.
Oh, that's even worse.
And
what's worse? Excuse me.
It was a absolute disaster.
Oh,
when
man.
I showed up at school the next day, I mean, it was like there were friends of mine that did not want to talk to me.
Oh, no.
They definitely didn't want to sit with me.
No.
I mean, it was an absolute disaster.
I used to have in high school, and by the time I got to my senior year, I cut it like really short where everybody was doing kind of like the gladiator style, like really short, and it was just all messy but kind of going forward. But like in my sophomore and junior years of high school, I was into skateboarding and stuff like that, so I had the big pants and
Jinko?
Yeah, I had
my
those.
word.
I had the chain wallet and everything else, whatever. But I was growing out my hair kind of long, but I had it shaved up on the sides, like all the way up to the top. And so I would part it down the middle, and so it would just be shaved underneath, but it parted down the middle. But it was never long enough to kind of like do like what people are calling like the man bun now or whatever.
Yeah, no.
But that's the way I wore it. It was just, it was shaved up to the top, like to right about, I don't know.
So it was almost like a bowl cut?
Yeah, but it was a bowl cut. It was like, it would be straight, like all the way around. And I would like have it like kind of like, I don't know how to explain it for people that are listening and not watching this, but it would just be kind of like curl, like, I don't know, kind of like the little foof up in the front. And
yeah. So the blonde hair thing was a disaster. I'd say but that wasn't a haircut. The worst haircut actually was when I was a senior in high school. I let a guy shave my head. It was the first time since I was like 7 or 8 that my head had ever been shaved.
You'd been hanging out outside for a while and like it was all like 2 different skin tones?
No, he shaves it and everything's fine. I did it at school, so I came home, surprised my mom with a buzzed head, which was awesome.
Was it with a razor too, or just like a little clippers?
Clippers.
Okay.
But we did it at school.
Yeah.
And so like I came home and my mom and dad are like, "What are you doing?" So I'll never forget. My hair starts to grow back and all that. It's time to go get a haircut. However, these 2 little sections of hair right here just would not come back. So time goes on, whatnot. I go to get a haircut. And I asked this lady, I'm 18 years old.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I let some guy buzz my head at school. This was like months ago. I'm like, when is all of this going to come back? And she looks at me like real serious and she goes, Scott, that stuff right there is probably not coming back.
Yeah.
And that was the process of this.
Yeah.
For those of you only listening, I pointed to my bald head. And so that was the start of it. I let someone shave my head, and that was the beginning of the end for my beautiful hair.
Yeah.
So that might have been the worst haircut because it is still affecting me to this day.
Well, you get reminded of it like whenever you look at your wedding pictures. Like you could see like those witches' peaks or widows' peaks or whatever they call them.
Yep.
Like in your wedding photos.
I held on a long time. My dad's still holding on. Right, he's rocking the horseshoe.
Sorry, Don.
Not Don, Joe.
Joe, that's what I meant. Don's your uncle.
Yeah.
I always get him mixed up because Don always listens to the pod. He listens to this podcast.
So my dad's been holding on for a long time.
Joe.
I decided at a young age I was not going to do that.
Dude, I think I called your dad Don the other day and he didn't say anything.
He'd probably just go with it.
These 3-letter names.
I just decided to go with it and shave my head starting. I was probably 27, 28, and I've just been doing it ever since then.
Yeah.
Because I like this a lot better than the horseshoe look that I would currently be rocking.
That's what I got.
Or if I wanted to try to grow my hair out, like I could probably still get it to where I had it when I got married. But the process of going from where I'm at right now, where I just shaved my head 2 days ago, to letting it grow, I mean, there's a lot of awkward stages you have to go through.
For sure.
And for me, like I'm up on stage every weekend in front of at least a couple hundred people.
Well, dude, whenever it gets cold, just put on a beanie and just
other people watch online, and so like I don't want to be up there in the awkward stage of trying to grow my hair out looking like a messed up chia pet.
No, whenever it gets cold, put on a beanie, grow it out, and by the time it comes around the spring, if you don't like it, then you could just like shave it off again, and nobody will know the difference.
If I have the guts to do it, I mean, you got the Gerber baby cut though.
Dude, I need to do. I was talking to Erica about this the other day. I was like, I got to do something different. I was like, like people probably think I've had the same haircut ever since I was 5.
Well, I used to do that haircut whenever I was in middle school, and one of my friends would always call me the Gerber baby.
Yeah,
and so I literally stopped doing it just simply because of that.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what to do. I think right now probably I have the worst haircut I've ever had in my life.
It's just a lack of a haircut at this point.
It's just like I'm tired and I don't want to spend 30 minutes in the morning getting ready.
Razor.
See, Erica won't let me do it.
Yeah. Well, I do feel
I
like
love my wife.
I've seen a lot of bald people with bad looking heads, so I do really praise the Lord that my head is at least like not deformed and like all misshapen and stuff.
Yeah.
Since I'm relegated to being bald for the rest of my life,
Looking like Sloth from Goonies.
yeah. I mean, I've seen some dudes with bald heads, and you're like, you should consider a hat, like full-time hat wearer, man. Like that's not a head that was made to be bald.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm at least thankful that my head, according to others, isn't like one of those heads that always needs to be covered up.
Yeah.
But having hair would have been fun, but also this is super easy. I never have to do anything with my hair, ever.
Just shave it once a week.
I shave it every Saturday. That way it's nice and fresh shaved for Sundays when I'm preaching.
Yeah.
If I go on vacation or something, I probably won't even shave it because
Yeah.
I don't know where, like, in the grand scheme of my life, like, I used to be, like, super vain, would not leave the house, like, without looking. Hair had to be perfect, outfit had to be perfect, yada, yada, yada. And, like, now when I leave the house, there's sometimes Megan will be like, what are you doing? I'm like,
dude, Erica,
I just do not care.
I don't care.
I show up at like Landon's baseball tournaments. I won't even be wearing our team shirt. I'll just be like, oh, I'm wearing a Mario shirt today. It's black. My shorts are black, and I'm wearing these Jordan sandals. And then Megan will be like, you have a hole in that armpit. I guess I have got to the point I don't care.
Yeah.
I wear whatever I will look best in when I preach.
Yeah.
Since people will see me.
Yep. And it's on the internet
and
for all of time.
outside of that, if you see me in the store, you're going to be like, this man looks homeless. Like, what is he doing? He's like, never has shoes on.
Yeah.
Like, his clothes, like, I wouldn't leave the house with a wrinkled shirt ever.
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty sure I only exclusively wear wrinkled clothes. Like, it's so crazy how far I've gone in that. So, like, if you see me and I haven't preached for a couple weeks, my hair is going to be longer than it is right now, and it's going to look horrible and like just the worst thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, well, that was a fun potluck. I wrote that.
You wrote what?
Did I write that potluck?
I don't know.
Or not potluck, that.
The question?
I don't remember writing that. That was a good one, though.
I don't know. It was a good one, too. I liked it. This whole episode's been really good. I enjoyed it. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate your insight and the wisdom that you always bring each and every single time you're on. Hey, thank you so much for listening. We hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to join us in person, or you can watch our services online here at Southridge Church at 9 and 11. We go live on Facebook and YouTube. But you can stay up to date with everything that we have going on here at Southridge through those avenues. But appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.